Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. The NFL owners meeting is usually not that interesting a day on the NFL calendar, but a couple of quotes that came out of NFL owners meeting this weekend, I thought were very illuminating and very fascinating, and I think signs of good things to come, hopefully, for the Cleveland Browns franchise. Let's start with the big ticket item, the one that people have been talking about since this quote has dropped. Jimmy Haslam talking about the Deshaun Watson trade. Now, for a long time, who was the driving force of the Deshaun Watson trade has long been a point of contention amongst Browns fans. Some people believe Andrew Berry should have been fired because of the trade, and he was the driving force behind it. Some people believe Kevin Stefanski was. Some people believe that Kevin was the only one that didn't have anything to do with it, that Andrew and Kevin had nothing to do with this, and that this was a Jimmy Haslam-led operation. It's been something we have not had a ton of things to illuminate us on. But today, Jimmy Haslam gave a quote that shines a bright light on the matter. We took a big swing and miss with Deshaun Watson. We thought we had the quarterback. We didn't. We gave up a lot of draft picks to get him. And we dug ourselves, and so we've got to dig ourselves out of that hole. The trade was an entire organization decision, but it ends with D&I, so I hold us accountable. Let's chew on that part for a little bit, right? They basically, while Deshaun Watson is on the team, I've never seen something like this happen, admitted that the trade was a massive failure. So anybody who has any lingering fears that the Watson era is still on, it's been off since like November of last year. I remember I took a lot of flack from some people when I announced this in like November. I'm like, hey, it's done. Not even November, before he tore his Achilles. It was after the Commanders game when I was like, this is done. It's over. That game was enough. Then he tears his Achilles a couple of times, so on and so forth. They have put up the retreat flag on this thing. They have officially let everybody know, as official as you can know, that it's over. It's a big swing and a miss. They thought they were going to get their quarterback. They didn't get their quarterback. Now, if you watch my channel for any period of time, you know that I'm not too harsh on judging people for making mistakes, right? Everybody's going to make a mistake no matter how good they are at their job. It's a given, right? Messing up, not being correct about stuff, not being able to predict the future, all that stuff is a given. Nobody can do those things. Nobody should be expected to do those things. Sometimes you're going to take a big swing and you're going to miss. The thing that I've been judging this Watson situation by for the Browns, at least going forward, because I care about this team and if they win going forward, is how do they handle this, right? Do they continue to double down on the Watson era and try to make it work when it's obvious it doesn't have any legs anymore? Do they try to overcorrect for the Watson era not working by overcompensating for another quarterback, whether that be in a draft or with a very, very expensive trade? I think a lot of these situations can end in ways that make you dig a hole that is Deshaun Watson even deeper than where it's dug now. Because yes, Deshaun Watson cost you 3 first-round picks, but if you swung 3 first-round picks for like Kyler Murray or something like that just to try to get out this Watson thing, I would argue you would be doing more damage than the Watson trade by adding on top of that damage another 3 first-round pick trade. Another thing that could be something that could add to the damage would be committing to a quarterback just to let people know that you're not committing to Deshaun, right? I have no problem with the Browns falling in love with the quarterback and taking them wherever they want to take that quarterback. But if the Browns aren't in love with the quarterback and they're just taking a quarterback just to take a quarterback, then that doesn't work out. More often than not, that ends in disaster, that ends in wasted years, it ends in draft classes where you look at and you say, hey, why didn't we draft this guy? He was there with our pick. Well, we already committed to a quarterback that we really didn't believe in, right? There's a lot of different ways this Watson failure can lean in to other failures. And as much flack as Jimmy and D. Haslam have taken, rightfully so, as the owners of the Cleveland Browns, they have demonstrated over the last couple of months that they are behaving more like what you would assume more functional teams owners behave like, right? The Myles Garrett situation, not allowing Myles to undermine Andrew Berry. The situation now with Deshaun basically saying, hey, it did not work out, basically announcing a clean end to this era for anybody who was still under the assumption or fear that this era was going to continue, and then taking the accountability for that move, while also in the same press conference reassuring that the job security of your general manager and head coach are still strong. It is clear that he, at least Jimmy Haslam and D. Haslam, do not entirely blame Kevin Stefanski or Andrew Berry for that trade. Now, that's all we know, right? Don't let that lean into all these other details being filled in, right? We do not know how much Andrew did or did not want to do this. We don't know how much Kevin did or did not want to do this. Right? We don't know who was pounding the table the most, but what we do know is that Jimmy Haslam looked at this whole situation and said to himself, yeah, not really their fault. How that happened, why he can't tackle it, is this just him being more of a leader and taking accountability for actions that weren't his? Who knows? But that is what we see out here in the public, and it lines up pretty cleanly with what we know about the job security of Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry. Every time somebody brings this up, we hear the usual people who have the connections to the people in power, right? Albert Breer, leak out, hey, no, these guys are safe. Not only are they safe, they're so incredibly safe. It seems clear to me that Jimmy trusts these guys and he wants these guys, Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, to be the brain trust for the Cleveland Browns football operations. And he's going to give them more than just the season to prove that. He's going to give them more than just one season to fix the quarterback situation. I know a lot of people were thinking, hey, the Browns are going to draft the quarterback simply to make sure that they don't get fired because they got to have a solution. Well, it doesn't seem like that's how this is viewed, even by Jimmy Haslam himself. And in a lot of these theories around drafting a quarterback at 2, they revolve around Jimmy Haslam being this wild card, right? But Jimmy, to the media again, said, despite the disappointing 3-14 season, he still has high confidence in Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, and added that the team will not force a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick. Doesn't mean they won't take a quarterback. If they love a quarterback and he's there too, they will take that quarterback. I don't know if that's a situation that exists. You have to forgive me. I live in the South. It's pollen season. Allergies are destroying my eyes right now. So if my eyes look a little red, or if I'm scratching at my eyes during this video, you see my eyes tearing up, that is why. But this is... Or if you start to see like a lot of starting editing in this one, again, allergies beating my ass down south. So I blow my nose a fair bit of time here. But anyways, Except them finally admitting failure publicly on the Deshaun thing. Now, we have seen this from incremental levels, right? The players have admitted failure on this whole thing, and then Kevin and Andrew Berry in their own ways admitted failure on this whole thing, and now we're seeing that not Kevin Stefanski, the owner of the Cleveland Browns, both owners of the Cleveland Browns have admitted failure on this whole thing. So, Watson thing, it's done with. They're done with the Watson stuff. Everything else seems to be semantic and contract related with Deshaun Watson, and they'll work their way out that hole as they see fit. But yes, the Watson era, it's been over for months. I've said this for months. It's really over now. What does this mean for the number 2 overall pick? Well, it means that the Browns are going to try to make the right pick at number 2. I think they're going to go with who they feel like is the best player available. Now, there have been 2 mindsets, right? I think the Browns' choice here at 2 is pretty easy. They have either Travis Hunter or they have Abdul Carter, and I prefer Abdul because that's a player who I can envision being successful a lot easier. It doesn't take much imagination to envision Abdul Carter being successful for your football team. But I am also equally intrigued by Travis Hunter. Now, Andrew Berry was talking about Travis Hunter, and listen to him talk.
Yeah, I was talking to, some of this. I was actually talking to Kevin about this earlier in the week, that I think one of the more misguided comparisons is when people talk about Travis relative to, and this is with all due respect because these guys are Hall of Famers, to Charles Woodson and Champ Bailey, right? They say like, hey, Charles Woodson, first predominant defensive player to win the Heisman, but he was really a two-way player. Champ was a two-way player. And I think what people don't realize is, so Charles Woodson in his college career, I realize it was a different era, but he had almost as many college receptions in his 3-year career as he did interceptions. He had 21 catches in college, and 16 passes. Champ Bailey, he had 59 catches in his 3-year career and under 1,000 yards, and I think 8 picks. Travis in the past 2 years, Travis, 5th in the nation in receiving, led the Big 12 with 96 catches, 15 touchdowns, 7 career picks, truly was a full-time player on both sides of the ball. And that's where he's I think there's maybe a little bit lost historically in terms of how rare of what he accomplished at Colorado. Yeah, it's like he didn't moonlight on the offensive side of the ball. In fact, if you think about it, this year alone he had more. I want to say he had more catches, yards, and touchdowns than both Charles and Champ did combined in their 3 years. And so I think that maybe paints how incredible of a season, and really 2 seasons that Travis has had, and that's why I see it a little bit differently than those guys.
This makes me feel a lot better if the Browns draft Travis Hunter. There's been a number of things that made me feel like, hey, the Browns might be the team that could draft Travis Hunter, right? Matter of fact, if you listen to that clip, it sounds a lot like me talking about that exact same thing to many of my guests last week whenever the conversation of Travis Hunter was brought up, right? It seems like something that people who are willing to think a little bit more outside the box with Travis tend to point out with him, which I think is an encouraging sign that, the Browns want to just draft Travis, try to force him into a box and everything. Another thing I've always felt like was interesting with Travis is, as a corner, I think he fits what Andrew Berry usually likes in corners, right? The corners that Andrew Berry loves are these super smart, savvy, ball instinct heavy zone corners. Those are the guys that he tends to go after. That's what he hoped Greg Newsome would be. That's what he saw in Martin Emerson and might still see in Martin Emerson, and that's what Travis Hunter is, but to a higher degree than both of those guys, quite frankly, combined. No disrespect to either of them. Travis is just a really good prospect. On the other side of the ball, you see somebody who reminds you a lot of the wide receiving prospects that Andrew Berry loves. Quick, super fast, super dangerous, the ball in their hands, short area quickness, super high, right? And then he adds an element that the Browns wide receiver room does not have. He's a legitimate 50-50 ball guy. Was one of the best 50-50 ball guys in all of college football last year. That's not a skill set the Browns have at the wide receiver position. Also, you can see how Travis would be an intriguing prospect for the Cleveland Browns at the top of this draft as a corner. You can see it as a wide receiver. He's a fit on both sides of the ball. Another thing to keep in mind at the top of the draft, right? Age. It's been a big factor for Andrew Berry and the picks that he's made. Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are both 21. Now, I think Travis is actually a little bit older than Abdul Carter. Abdul turns 22 in January. Travis turns 22 in May. So not significantly, but like a half a year older Travis Hunter is versus Abdul Carter. I don't think that's going to be the deciding factor for Andrew Berry. But when we're talking about the quarterbacks at the top of the draft, it is worth noting Shedeur Sanders already 23 years old, turns 24 next February. And then Cam Ward is 22, but will be 23 by the time the season starts, same age as Shedeur Sanders. So there is something to consider there at the top of the draft. But back to Travis Hunter and why I think the Browns might be a fit for him. A lot of people are underthinking it or overthinking it. I don't know what's the best term for it, but a lot of people aren't willing to be bold enough with their evaluation of Travis. They're trying to put him into boxes. I've even specifically talked about how Travis Hunter is more successful as an offensive player than all of the other two-way players that people throw at him, right? Andrew Berry also let it slip, and he keeps letting it slip when he talks about Travis. He definitely sees Travis as somebody who could be much more of an offensive threat than I think people are giving him credit for. And I get why he thinks that, and I agree with him on that, because a lot of what we talk about with Travis is how good his zone instincts are, how strong he is in zone. But we also understand that most of Travis's coaching throughout his football career has been at the cornerback position. So that's where the bulk of his training has gone to. He's very raw on the wide receiver side as far as training goes. He doesn't look like the most polished wide receiver you've seen, but you look at the production that he's able to pull off on that side of the ball, it makes you wonder, what if you made this dude commit to being a wide receiver? Like, how much better, because he's already incredible at a Power 4 level at wide receiver, won the Biletnikoff Award. How much better could he be if he dedicated more time to being a receiver? I don't think a lot of people have given that thought, right? A lot of people have given the cornerback thing a lot of thought, but the wide receiver thing, I don't think people have given that enough thought, and I don't think enough people have given enough thought to, hey, he might be able to do both in the NFL level. I think there's something to it. I don't think you should look. I don't think any Browns fan should underestimate the appeal of Travis Hunter. As much as I like Abdul Carter, and I think Abdul Carter, wherever he lands, whether it be Cleveland, somewhere else, I think he'll be a phenomenal player as long as he stays healthy and he stays out of trouble, right? If he does those two things, he'll be phenomenal in the NFL. But the player in this draft that has the impact, I believe, to have the biggest impact on a win-loss record over the long-term period of the career is Travis Hunter. Because he has the potential to be a third down ball stopper on defense and a third down machine on offense. We've never seen anything like that. We can compare him to all these other guys who've come out. We have never seen anything like Travis Hunter. And Andrew Berry seems to be like one of the few people who understand that. Now, he might have that vision. Is Kevin Stefanski convinced of that vision? You need buy-in from him, right? It's kind of like a quarterback. You need buy-in from Jim Schwartz. Like, drafting Travis Hunter is similar to drafting a quarterback, where you're going to need buy-in from more than just one side of football ops. You're going to need offense and defense to buy in on this thing. But the more I hear Andrew Berry talk about Travis Hunter, the more comfortable I am with the idea of the Browns drafting Travis Hunter, because I feel like the Browns are a good landing spot for Travis Hunter. Because I think what it's going to take, more importantly than any other fit, offensively, defensively, schematically, whatever, what it's going to take in order for Travis Hunter to be all he can be in the NFL is for somebody to understand the unicorn that he is and not try to make that unicorn into a pony, right? Like, let the unicorn be a unicorn at the next level. It's something to think about. But that's what's come out of owners' meetings. Complete dismissal of Deshaun Watson's future in Cleveland. There was some speculation about Joe Flacco. I know Jimmy Haslam brought up Joe Flacco specifically. I think Joe Flacco is the ultimate fallback plan for the Cleveland Browns at quarterback. I think right now they're like, okay, well, we'll see what happens at pick number 2, right? If the Browns, let's say the Browns do actually love Cam Ward, and they would take him at 2. If Cam Ward falls to 2, then the Browns take Cam Ward, and they don't trade for Kirk Cousins, and they just move on with Cam Ward. If that is the case that they do love Cam, then go ahead, do it. Whatever other quarterback they might feel that way about, insert them here or insert them at the number 2 conversation. If they do not love any of the quarterback options that are available to them at the number 2 overall pick, then, you got to start looking at veterans, right? Kirk Cousins, whatever it is. The time to start a young guy who could be a starter for you was like 3 months ago, right? You had to throw $30 million at like Justin Fields if that's what you wanted to do. Or 35 a year to Sam Darnold if that's what you wanted to. So they're probably going to go veteran route. See what happens in the draft. See what happens with Jalen Milroe. I think that that's something that could happen for the Cleveland Browns. But yeah, that's what's come out of owners' meetings. I think it's interesting. I think it's a good thing that Jimmy Haslam finally took some ownership over this whole Deshaun Watson thing, right? Like, and he didn't say that it was all his idea and it's all his fault. But, he came out and he said, hey, man, this didn't work. We took a swing. We missed, And that's the point I've been making about the Watson thing. And also, it's nice to hear Andrew Berry seems like one of the guys out there that really does get it with Travis Hunter. And given that that's one of your 2 options and, Travis Hunter does have probably the most potential out of those 2 options. Look, man, I'm going to tell you this right here. Between 11 and 12 at 2, I'm fine with both, right? You won't see me tripping about Abdul Carter at 2 or Travis Hunter at 2. I would be fine with both decisions at the selection. I think they're both worth the number 2 overall pick. I think they both have the potential to be the best players in this draft. And I think they're both phenomenal athletes and phenomenal prospects that you'd be happy to take number 2, no matter what draft class we're talking about, unless we're talking about something like truly legendary that has like 5 different quarterbacks in it, right? But, these dudes, they make sense at number 2 in most drafts. I think that's the selection that maybe people pivot to as we get closer to the draft. I don't think it's much of a debate. I think it's one of those things where you sit there and you say, I'm happy with both options, because that's where I'm at. But y'all let me know what y'all think about it in the comment section down below. Have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.